Hi, my name is Sneha Ahmed, and together with my colleagues Jessica Benson and Deborah Fiedler, I'm going to be talking to you about a psychological assessment tool, the Rey Complex Figure. I will walk you through the purpose, rationale, and applications of the Rey Complex Figure. Jessica will talk to you about the test's psychometric properties and normative data. And finally, Deborah will demonstrate how the test is administered and give us a brief summary of its strengths and limitations. Now, if I asked you to draw a clock face or a house from memory, I believe you'd feel quite confident doing that. How do you think you would go reproducing an image like this? This is the Rey Complex Figure test, a non-verbal neuropsychological test. It was developed and standardized in the 1940s by Swiss psychologist Andre Rey and his research assistant Osterieth. And was originally designed to assess brain injuries. Since then, this complex and abstract two-dimensional figure has continued to provide a sound assessment of brain injuries, cognitive disorders, and executive function, and it's now one of the top 10 tests used by neuropsychologists. Very briefly, Deborah will go into more details on this later. The test involves copying the figure while looking at it, then reproducing the figure from memory after 3 minutes, and finally, after being distracted for 30 minutes, reproducing it again from memory. The purpose of the Rey Complex test is to assess constructional, organizational, and motor skills. It demonstrates visuospatial constructional ability, visual memory short and long term, perceptual organization, and planning, which is executive function. Perceptual organization is our ability to find patterns, to organize and understand our environment. And executive function includes our higher order skills, such as planning and organizing. The Rey Complex has been shown to highlight planning problems or deficiencies in this area. The Rey Complex test provides insights into cognitive areas such as attention and concentration, planning and organizing, non-verbal memory, because this is a difficult figure to encode verbally, and fine motor coordination. Unlike drawing a house or a clock, which could be influenced by a participant's background, visual drawing memory tests are mostly unaffected by language, culture, and education. Being an abstract figure, this test eliminates semantic knowledge as well. However, the neuropsychological field has recognized culture and educational exposure can impact performance on the Rey Complex test. So ethically, this is an area that warrants future investigation. Being able to recall a figure is influenced by the order a figure is organized when reconstructing it. So an ideal approach is seeing the big picture and drawing external features first. This is global processing. And a less ideal is when you see the internal features first, and that's called local processing. There are adaptations of the original test, which Jessica will briefly touch on. However, the original test provided the following insights. If a precise copy was done in under 3 minutes, it indicated normal processing. An accurate copy but slowly done highlighted possible issues with perception or execution, and poor copy and very slowly done indicated mental disability or dementia. The Rey Complex test can be used in both clinical settings and in research, and can also be administered across a wide age range. Speculation is between 6 to 89 or 93 years, and therefore it's got wide applicability. In conjunction with other tests, the Rey Complex test, which should only be administered by a neuropsychologist, can narrow down which parts of the brain are affected and can detect neurological diseases such as dementia, psychological diseases such as ADHD or schizophrenia, malingering or suspect effort in criminal cases, because it's difficult to ascertain what is being assessed in this test. And finally, and importantly, executive and cognitive function. Now I'm going to hand over to Jessica to talk about psychometric and normative data.
Thank you. My name is Jessica Benson, and I will be discussing the psychometric properties and normative data of the Rey Complex Figure. Firstly, we will look at the reliability of the Rey Complex Figure. A number of studies have reported good to excellent intra-rater and inter-rater reliability, with coefficients generally ranging from 0.8 to 0.99. Though it is important to note that the inter-rater and intra-rater reliability of the individual scored items can range from as little as 0.14 to as high as 0.96. Findings like this may indicate that more research is needed into the scoring of each individual item. In terms of internal consistency, there is overall good reliability, with coefficients ranging from 0.6 to 0.82. The lower end of the reliability coefficients has been associated mostly with copy trial scores being less reliable. This might be due to a ceiling effect, as many scores lean towards the max score of 36, with over 50% of scores being over 33. For test-retest reliability, both recall trials were found to be moderate with coefficients of 0.57 to 0.77, but copy trials were found to have low reliability with coefficients ranging from 0.56 to 0.68. Studies have found that this might be caused by a practice effect that comes from the repeated administration of the test. To avoid this practice effect, the Taylor Complex Figure was created. The alternate forms reliability for the Taylor Complex Figure ranges from low to moderate, with coefficients ranging from 0.5 to 0.76. The Taylor Complex Figure was created with an equal number of details of assumed equal complexity as the Rey Complex Figure. And while several studies have found it to be a good alternative, some studies have found that the Rey Complex Figure is significantly more challenging than the Taylor Complex Figure. They advise that the Taylor Complex Figure is to be used cautiously, and for the Rey Complex Figure to be the first choice when not in a repeated tested situation. Next, in terms of validity, while some studies have struggled to measure the validity of the Rey Complex Figure, other studies have found overall good to moderate construct and criterion-related validity. For the construct validity, the Rey Complex Figure scores tend to load heavily into visuospatial and non-verbal memory factors, and there are significant links to block design trials of both the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, or WAIS, and the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children, or WISC. The block design trial also measures visuospatial organization. These findings indicate good construct validity and that the Rey Complex Figure measures what it claims to measure. For criterion-related validity, one study looking at non-verbal memory compared Rey Complex Figure scores between probable Alzheimer's disease patients and a control group, and found that the scores were significantly lower for the Alzheimer's disease patients, indicating good criterion-related validity. When looking at the normative data of the Rey Complex Figure, the strongest effect size is the demographic of age, followed closely by education. There has also been some reports of handedness and gender differences, but the effect sizes have generally been small and inconsistent. For age, participants younger than 9 and older than 60 generally score lower, with scores decreasing significantly after 70 to 80 years of age. This effect may be caused by less efficient encoding and recall strategies found in these age groups, especially when noting that the most significant score differences were in the recall trials rather than the copy trials. There is less information on the effect of education, though it generally reports a moderate to strong positive effect. Recently, there has been research that suggests that it is the participants' general intelligence, or IQ, that causes the effect, rather than their level of education, and an increasing amount of studies have added to this hypothesis. Overall, age and intelligence levels appear to have the largest effect on Rey Complex Figure scores. Thank you. Next, we will hear from Deborah.
Hello, thanks Jess. My name is Deborah Fiddler, and I'll be taking you through a demonstration of the Rey Complex Figure, as well as the strengths and limitations. As you've already heard, the Rey Complex Figure assessment is used in clinical and research settings and measures visio-constructional and visio-spatial skills, as well as non-verbal memory skills. There are different versions of the Rey Complex Figure that have been developed since 1942. And the Myers and Myers 1995 study examined 4 of those procedures and noted that no significant differences underscoring the ongoing clinical utility of the assessment tool. The Myers and Myers 1995 copy, 3-minute, 30-minute, and recognition trial conditions will be demonstrated to indicate how the tool would be given in a clinical setting. Prior to the assessment, the participant is not made aware that they will be required to draw a figure from memory. The room setting should be quiet with no distractions and no breaks. The materials provided for the assessment are the manual, the stimulus card, the 16-page test booklet, marker pens, copy paper, and a stopwatch. The total time allocated is around 45 minutes. In the first copy trial, a blank piece of paper is placed in front of the participant vertically. Timing begins as soon as the drawing is exposed. The card and the participant's copy are exposed for a maximum of 5 minutes and a minimum of 2.5 minutes. If at 2.5 minutes the participant is drawing too slowly, he or she will be told this and asked to speed up. If the participant is finished before 2.5 minutes, they will be asked to check the drawing carefully to make sure it is complete. After the drawing is finished, the stimulus card and copy are removed from sight, and the time taken to complete is recorded. After a 3-minute delay of unrelated verbal activity, the immediate recall trial is administered. There is no time limit. Following a delay of 30 minutes, the delayed recall trial is administered. It is filled with interfering activity, not constructional. And again, there is no time limit. Following the delayed recall trial, a recognition trial can be administered, and it serves as a performance validity test. It measures recognition memory without the significant use of drawing, instead relying on visual cues to retrieve the information. The participant is asked to recognize 24 geometric figures, 12 of which are part of the stimulus figure, and 12 of which are distractors. Finally, throughout the 3 trials, there are 2 methods of recording the participant's strategy. Coloured pencils, which are switched at approximately equal parts of the construction, or flowchart where the order of lines is recorded and numbered. We will now look at a demonstration without the recognition trial.
I'm going to show you a card on which there is a design, and I'd like you to copy this sheet of paper. Please copy the figure as carefully as you can. Remember a short time ago I had you copy the figure. I would now like you to draw that figure again. Do you remember the design I had you copy a little while ago? Now I would like you to draw the figure from memory as carefully and completely as you can on this sheet of paper. If you make a mistake, do not erase, just correct what you think is wrong.
There are many methods of scoring depending on the version of the Rey Complex figure that has been administered. Each scoring system has its own manual, administration, norms, and protocols. The most comprehensive qualitative scoring system is the Boston Qualitative Scoring System, developed by Stern et al. 2007. The most extensive quantitative system is the Myers and Myers 1995 system. The Rey Complex Figure divides the figure itself into 18 units, and each unit is scored for accuracy and placement. A score of 0 to 2 can be assigned to each unit or part of the figure, and total scores range from 0 to 36. Interpretation needs to consider the total score and qualitative aspects of the performance. However, high scores are clinically meaningless, as the majority of healthy individuals are able to draw the figure without distortion. We're going to now have a look at some of the strengths and limitations of the Rey Complex Figure, looking firstly at limitations. Firstly, there are many different versions that have different criteria and scoring systems, and they don't align with any standardized results, meaning that any comparisons are difficult. Although the total administration time is 45 minutes, there is a lapse of 30 minutes, and that can be disruptive to other assessments that might be occurring at the same time. While the total score provides quantitative information, there is no detail regarding executive functioning and planning. Now, a qualitative scoring system is available, but they are lengthy in administration and can be considered counterproductive. There is no universal approach. Scoring is subjective and complex and can lead to bias. Although there are alternative forms such as the Taylor, they are less sensitive to pick up any deficits, any neurological deficits. Additionally, there are cultural factors that need to be considered, as the Rey Complex Figure is Western orientated, and further, gender and handedness are other aspects that need to be examined in any interpretation. The strengths of the Rey Complex Figure are that it's easy to administer. It has good psychometric properties, adequate norms, and validity. It is a screening assessment tool for malingering or suspect effect, non-credible performance, which is used using the recognition trial, so that can get added on or not. It enables explanatory detail regarding any secondary effect of any brain injury. The Rey Complex Figure can evaluate brain dysfunction, as it enables a comparison between the brain hemispheres. It can test for the presence of psychological conditions such as ADHD, eating disorder, or schizophrenia, and it can test for the presence of dementia, whether that's Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, Lewy body, and other neurological conditions. Finally, the consideration is that it is a screening assessment tool. It is not diagnostic, and additional information and other tests may be required to have a complete clinical evaluation. Thank you for listening, and I will now just go through the references that we have used in this presentation. Thank you.